Good day, dear students. Today I am going to take lesson number 2 of history, that is growth of nationalism. Here we have to study about the factor leading to the growth of nationalism, that is the economic exploitations, repressive colonial policies, social religious reform movements, and brief mentions of the contribution of Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Jyotiba Phule, and role of the press. Some of the foundation of the Indian National Congress are given in the lesson which you have to study. So let's start the lesson. One of the most distinguishing features of the second half of the 19th century was the birth of national awakening among the peoples in India. It originated from the concept of nationalism and right of self-determination initiated by the French revolutions. The social religious reform movements in India as an offshoot of modernization introduced by the British in India and as a reaction of the Indians to the British colonial policy, the political awareness generated by this trend gave birth to various political associations. In this lesson, we will read about the different political associations formed during the times. Now, what are the factors that led to the growth of nationalism? Let me first explain to you what is nationalism. Nationalism refers to the feeling of oneness and common consciousness that emerged when people believe or living in a community or in a territories share some historical, political and cultural background. That is the same background which they share. Have the same languages, culture, values and consider themselves to be the one nation. Though India had a long history going back to many centuries, it was never a one nation and comprised mainly of many kingdoms. There were many kingdoms in India. The modern feeling of nationalism was lacking among them and it emerged during the British rule in India. It was mainly after the War of 1857, that is the first war of independence, the feeling of nationalism really arose among the people and they realized that it is time for them to fight against the British government. So first and foremost is economic exploitation, as I have told you in the previous lesson, that is in the first war of independence 1857 the British government has totally exploited the economy of India. And the first factor that led to nationalism was the economic exploitations, and that is the peasants were there and the artisans, the craftsmen, the working class were there. The peasants were totally destroyed. The artisans, the craftsmen, the cotton industry in India was destroyed by the British government. As we all know, they used to take the raw material like cotton from India and used to make good made in their own country and used to sell them in India at higher price. And at the same time, the peasants were asked to grow only a few crops like indigo and silk, and there were other crops which they need to grow, which was forbidden. And in the same run, another class of society emerged due to this, that the working class of society. The growth of modern industries led to the birth of a new classes in India, that is the working class. They may be the lawyer, they may be the teachers, professors and factory owners who are generally Englishmen. At the same time, the educated Indians employments were only available to the were available in the government service, in which competitions was high and changes of promotion was very big. There was as I have told you in the previous lesson, 1857, that the highest rank to the military was given to Subedar only. After that rank, they were only up to this rank they could reach, and the same thing was happened in all the other jobs. So all sections of the society felt that their economic salvations lay in freeing themselves from the British yoke. And second was the repressive policy, colonial policy. The repressive colonial policy was too tough for them to handle. The nature of the colonial British rules on India helped the growth of national sentiment among the people, and the British has conquered India to promote their own interests. So it was Lord Leighton's organized a grand darbar in 1877 to proclaim Queen Victoria the Empress of India, and at the same time there was famines in Bengal, and he did nothing and he spent crores of rupees in proclaiming the king to the Empress of India. In this way, this hurt the sentiment of the people. There were other repressive policies like the Vernacular Press Act was there, the Indian Arm Act was there, in which the Vernacular Press Act made forbid vernacular paper to publish any material that might excite feeling of dissatisfaction among the British Englishmen. The Indian Armed Act of 1878 made it a criminal offence for India to carry arms without license. And the maximum age limited for the Indian civil service examination reduced from 21 to 19. It was too difficult for them to pass the Indian civil service at the age of 19. And the import duties on British textiles were removed. It proved harmful for the Indian industry. So at the same time, when all these repressive policies was there, at the same time the social religious reform movements was carried out by the Indian people, and some of the greatest reformer of the times, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Jyotiba Phule, and they opposed the caste system, they opposed the child remarriage, the widow remarriage act. Raja Ram Mohan Roy was one of the greatest social and religious reformers of 19th century, wanted to do away with the religious and social evil which was prevalent in the Indian society. So he formed the Brahmo Samaj, which later renamed Brahmo Samaj, and the Brahmo Samaj believed in monotheism or worship of God. The second reformer was Jyotiba Phule, who was an urban, educated member of so-called low caste. And in 1854, he established a school for untouchability and started a private orphanage for the widow. He wanted to liberate the depressed classes and make them aware of the right by educating them. So he founded the Satya Sodak Samaj in 1873, which aimed of securing social justice for the weaker section of the societies. He pioneered the Widow Remarriage Act movement in Maharashtra and worked for the education of the women. Swami Dayanand and Swami Vivekananda proclaimed the superiorities of Indian cultures and civilizations. The reformers condemned untouchability and the caste systems. They also taught people not to ignore the importance of women who could participate in the national movement. They protested against the British dominance of India, and Swami Dayanand Saraswati was the first to use the word Swaraj and to raise the slogan India for the Indians. At the same time, the role of the press, the role played by the press also helped in awakening national feelings among the people. Large numbers of newspapers were started in the latter half of the 19th century, and some of the prominent newspapers were the Amrit Bazar Patrika, the Bengali, the Tribune, the Pioneers, the Times of India, the Hindus, and the Statements in English were some of the newspapers that helped in arousing the feeling of nationalism among the people. It was through the press that the message of patriotism and modern liberal idea of liberty, equality, fraternity, and freedoms, home rules, independence spread among the people. It made people and the possible exchanges of views among different social groups from different parts of the country and organized political movement. It made Indians aware of what was happening in the world. Now, at the same time, there were many associations I have talked about were formed during the times, and the East India Association was formed in London in 1886 by Dadabhai, and the association provided information on all Indian subjects to the British citizens and members of Parliament. The Indian Association's 1876 was meant to be an all-Indian movement and headed by Surendranath Banerjee, and the objective of the Indian Association was creation of strongly body of public opinion, integration of Indian people on the basis of common political interest. At the same time, promotion of friendly relations between the Hindu and Muslim was also promoted. The achievements was that it launched agitations against oppressive activities, acts like the License and the Arm Act. The Indian National Conference came into 1883, and the Indian National Conference held its sessions in December 1885 in Kolkata, and during the period the Indian National Congress held its session in Mumbai. Both these bodies serve the same purpose, that is to work for the welfare of the India. So the National Conference merged with the Indian National Congress on December 1886. Now, how the Indian National Congress was formed? The Indian National Congress was formed in 1885 by A.O. Homi, a retired British member of the Indian Civil Service. He wanted to set up an organization that could draw the attention of the government to the administrative drawbacks and suggestions means to rectify them. But at the same time, one of the suggestions of Dadabhai was the name of the union was changed to the Indian National Congress, and the foundation of the Indian National Congress was held in December 28, 1885. The Congress stood for the hopes and aspiration of the people of India, who accepted the leadership in launching the freedom movement and achieved the goal of freedoms in 1947. Now, at the same time, the main objective of the aims and objective of the Indian National Congress was to promote friendly relations between nationalist political workers from different parts of the country, develop and consolidate the feeling of national unity irrespective of caste, religious and provinces, and formulate popular demands and prevent them before the government, to train and organize public opinion in the country. This was the main objective of the Indian National Congress. Dear student, study the objective of the Indian National Congress by heart so that you can understand it. The different sessions of the Congress is held during the period, and the first sessions and the second session are most important. The first session was held in 1885 in Mumbai with W.C. Banerjee as a chairperson. The second session was held in 1886 Kolkata, and Dadabhai Naoroji was a chairperson of these sessions. So this is about the lesson. The Surat session was also there. In 23 sessions of the Congress was held in 1907 under the presidency of Ras Bihari Ghosh. They were disputed between the early nationalists and the assertive nationalists of the Congress regarding the matter of agitation in Bengal. There was a split in the Congress, and the assertive nationalists were excluded from the Congress nearly for a decade, and it was only in 1916 with the signing of the Lucknow Pact that these nationalists came together. So, important resolutions of the Congress are also given in the old book, but you have to study about the main objectives and aims of the Congress. You have to study about the different associations formed and some of the causes that promote in the growth of nationalism. This is about the lessons. Thank you, students.